Good afternoon and Happy New Year to you all, and welcome to the first Cabinet meeting of 2025. Can I move straight to the agenda and ask if we have any apologies, please?
No apologies, Chair.
Okay, no apologies whatsoever. Can I ask if there are any late items?
No late items.
And any receipt of petitions?
No receipt of petitions.
Identification of urgent items to which call-in will not apply?
None, Chair.
Declarations of interest. Do I have any? Thank you very much. And we'll go to the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of December 2024. Do we all agree that they're a clear reflection of the meeting? Okay, thank you very much. Lovely. Item 7 is the recommendations from the Executive Scrutiny Board, which I will take alongside each item, which moves us on to the first item of key decisions, which is item 8, the review of the Rainsway, HWRC and bulky waste initiatives. Councillor Anwaha.
Thank you, Chair. Following the manifesto pledges by the Labour Group, 2 new waste-related initiatives were delivered in 2024. These included the removal of the need to pre-book visits to the HWRC on Sundays and the provision of free bulky waste collections for 2 weeks per year, available in April and September 2024. The intention of both was to make responsible waste disposal easier and to partly support a reduction in fly tipping. It was agreed by Cabinet when these changes were approved to keep them under review. This report seeks to review both initiatives and consider 6 months data from April to September 2024. So far, we've gathered relevant insight from the free HWRC sessions on Sundays. Positively, the free sessions provide more choice for customers. Now, where typically we're typically seeing 700 to 800 visitors each Sunday. Recycling levels have been maintained and concerns around queuing traffic have not materialized to the extent anticipated. However, a focused data analysis suggests that a full year of running this service, as is, will cost £200,000 rather than the initial projected £141,000. This shows a £59,000 increase over the course of the year. We have also seen an increase in the quantity on non-household waste and an increase in repeat visitors to the site above what would have been considered normal. Now, to the free bulky waste. An offer of 500 free bulky waste collections took place in the spring and autumn of 2024. The initiative was positively viewed by customers, and the free collections were quickly taken up, so much so that there was some frustration by those who were unsuccessful. The take-up was spread across all wards in the city. Despite these changes in the 6 months that the free HWRC sessions have been in place and free bulky waste collections available, the number of fly tipping across them have increased. In an effort to counter this, more recently, a second trial was conducted in the form of a bulky waste voucher scheme. This has proved successful in providing free bulky waste collections to those who are least able to afford them. So this targeted initiative represents a real opportunity to help those who need it, alleviating the fly tipping and waste accumulations in the community. This is only a review of these initiatives with a recommendation to note the contents of the report. However, free Sunday sessions at HWRC has been included in the MTFP consultations to gauge public feedback on the trial. The feedback will be considered by Cabinet along with this review to form a final proposal for the 2025 budget. 2 things I would like to also include before I round up is that some of the data we've seen around the HWRC and the waste that has been brought there has been throughout the week and not just on Sunday. So, these there's a lot of correlation that doesn't necessarily mean causation, when we look at the data. So these, are things to also consider. And finally, the feedback on the budget consultation is low. So if members of the public have an opinion on the free Sunday sessions, I would encourage them to feed into the consultation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Anwaha. I mean, both the initiatives were trials at the end of the day. We said that we would bring back a review to Cabinet. That's what this is today, to look at the successes or the failures of those trials. And I think that that's the responsible thing to do. And when we look at this data, I think it is a little bit difficult to correlate some of the decisions that we took versus the stats that we see. That's a very, very important point that you've raised, Councillor Noir, that actually one of the, at 4.5, it's talking about some of the extra waste on chemicals, paint, plasterboard, rubble, carpets, etc., has increased during that time. But as I understand it, that's not data just related to the Sunday. That is across the whole week. So it's very important that you cannot look at the decision that we took about Sunday openings and apply this to the Sundays only. This applies to the whole period of time. So some of this data is difficult to equate to that decision that's been made. When we came into the administration also, in terms of the free bulky waste collections, the first trial that was brought to us was what's presented to us here. And while we can see from the evidence that it had a really successful uptake, what we can see through trial and error is that it hasn't necessarily been taken up in the areas where we know it's needed the most. And so I think, the point of trials is to find out what works and what doesn't. And the beauty of having a 4-year term is to be able to have the time to make that exploration rather than make rash promises that then you have to double down on. And to be able to look back at this and say, actually, there is a better way, and to look at this voucher system, and we've trialled that, and we're showing that actually that's having a really, really positive uptake. It's getting to the areas where it's really needed. And time will tell, again, whether that's going to have an impact on fly tipping. But importantly, really, really importantly, in terms of all of these figures, is that our pledge to increase a variety of bookable appointments and open sessions. The point was to give it variety, and we certainly did have an ambition to be able to reduce fly tipping. And while the stats don't show that has happened nationally, there are stats to show that fly tipping has increased across the country. So the reasons for that must be far, far more deeper and involved than whether you can get to the tip or whether you have to pay for bulky waste collections, for example. Now, I'd like to open up to the floor any questions that the Cabinet has to our officers on this report. Councillor Dinser?
Thank you very much. Before I pose any questions for the officers, I think it's really important to highlight that on both these initiatives, the free bulky waste offer and opening up for non-bookable visits to our recycling centre has been a success. What we wanted to happen and offer choice has happened. On Sundays, more people are actually using the facility, and the popularity of the free bulky waste collection was there. But, as you say, did it target the right groups, and do we need to do more and different to make that happen? And I think we will look into doing that. But the important thing is that some of the concerns that were raised at the time about queuing, about blockage, all of that didn't transpire. And secondly, with the increase in tonnage being received at the recycling centre, the rate of recycling has maintained the same. Therefore, there's been an increase in recycling. And that's one of our ambitions, not only for us as an administration, but us as a council. So our recycling rates have improved, and that's got to be a good thing. And that can only be attributed to the fact that it's available in different ways to people to use. And some of the things that are often found on our streets are where some of the increases have happened in terms of chemicals, carpets, mattresses being received in the recycling centre. So, but I think the difficulty is how much of the impact of some of this is related to the Sunday and how much is across. And I think that's something that we need to look to see if officers can be in the future be able to get that discrimination, so we get a bit more detailed picture of what is actually happening and how we can actually affect it better. And I'm not sure it's something that officers are able to do now, or it's something that we can aspire towards, because that gives us a bit more granularity to actually give us more information to see how we can actually improve things better. So I think that's something I'd be interested to know. And the other thing, I think, Councillor, I know I probably answered it, but just for clarification, some of this information is, most of it I think is 7 days, rather than actual distinguishing between the weekdays and the Sunday, because that really will help us to give us more information to see how we can actually adjust what we're doing to provide a better service. But I have to say that the aspirations of giving more choice and enabling people to use the site better, it has increased, and it's something that I think we should welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I just go over to you, Simon, because just to explain the stats and how difficult it must have been to have collated them, but can you explain to us how some of these actually do apply to the entire week, whether it's bookable sessions or non-bookable? Obviously, you can see that there's an increase of visitors on the Sunday. You can see that there's an increase in waste and recycling as a result. But in terms of the abuse, for example, of the system where we think that there's trade waste being brought in, you know, how can you differentiate whether that's happening on a Sunday or the rest of the week?
Thanks, Chair. So yeah, the figures which are quoted in the report around the tonnages which are moved have been into the site, that is over 7 days. So we can see those increases in 4.5. It is difficult to break that down just to a Sunday due to the waste flows which are going through the site. With regards to the second point, which is around people being turned away and also sort of almost the misuse of the site, 4.7, so that sort of articulates that it shows that 96 vehicles have visited site more than 12 times in 26 weeks since April, and the top visitor has been to site 44 times. So that is on Sundays that we're collating that data.
But is there more that we could do to stop that from happening on Sundays, for example?
We could carry out further checks of vehicles. You know, the site staff do a lot of work in turning away people. They do tend to know who's using the site, and they turn away as many as possible. But that sometimes comes with conflict and the abuse of staff at site. But we could definitely put more staff into sort of trying to get that view on the gate as such.
And if we've got the ANPR system in and we can see that 96 vehicles are visited more than 12 times, I mean, let's face it, that could mean 13. There is only one visitor that's visited 44 times in that 6-month period. You know, could we not apply that same rule that's Monday to Saturday? Could we not apply that same rule to Sunday visitors? Or at least restrict it, maybe not to 12, because sometimes, let's face it, you want to go, you've got 3 carfuls, you know, you've done the garden, or whatever it is, or you're emptying your house, like, you know, or moving house like I am at the moment, and you need several visits on one day. And I've done that recently on a Sunday, and it's been smooth as anything, and an absolutely pleasurable trip. But, you know, so maybe restricting it maybe to more than 12, but less than 20, for example, for a whole year. Could that be applied on Sundays?
We could definitely look into it, and I think we could then actually look at the registration vehicle, the number for that vehicle, and try and follow that through to have a conversation with that person to say actually what is it they're using the site for, and following that up in more detail.
So yeah, we could be more clear about restrictions, couldn't we? It was Councillor Khan next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. I'm not going to repeat what Hardiel said. Suffice to say he's right in there. But there is another element to this, and that is that as ward councillors and as an authority, we have a duty to take care of our residents and to help them in any way that we can. As a ward councillor from one of the sort of most affected wards in terms of rubbish and fly tipping and other problems associated with that. I can honestly say that people have been very happy with being able to go on a Sunday, because there are people out there who, for whatever reason, whether it's work, illness, ability, less able, can't get there themselves, and they rely on friends, relatives, or neighbours to go there. And unfortunately, when you're asking somebody else, you're constrained by their time, what availability they have. Whereas, as it is now, I've been told by people that, you know, they're very grateful for this, because they've asked their neighbour or their son or daughter, and they've said, okay, we'll do it when we can. And they have come and done it. And that's especially to those people who are either, you know, sort of elderly or have some form of illness or whatever. It's stress and tension on them to see something there that they can't get rid of, and they can't ask anybody else because of the time limit. So I think it's been a very good trial, and I, you know, as I said, I've heard nothing but good things about it, and it's part of our manifesto to be sort of people-orientated, people-friendly, and to help our residents in any way we can.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair, and I thank the officers for this report and the detail in it. And I think it's fairly clear that having the option of just turning up on a Sunday, but then booking for the rest of the 6 days a week is a good balance, and it serves the people of Derby well. Recycling rates are actually up, and what I'd say, if there are a few errant people who are abusing this system, that what we do is we focus on stamping out that abuse rather than spoiling what is a system which I think is quite popular across the city, spoiling it for everyone else. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Swan.
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat again what everybody else said, because I think we're all roughly on the same page here. And again, thanking the officers for this report and all the data. I can only imagine how difficult and challenging that has been, but it is data and it's quantitative. And what we really need to hear is some of that qualitative data. Why are people using a non-bookable system on a Sunday opposed to booking? And I don't think we've got that. I don't know how we get that, but I think that's something that we would be really, really interested in.
Thank you, Councillor Swan. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'd like to, well, I'm interested to see the figures from sort of September to present, or obviously up to April. I know we need to make a decision. Just because figures that I had from 22 to 23 in comparison to 23 to 24 had actually reduced. Now, I know that's a different time frame, but it's still within that. And it's by about 500 fly tips that were collected. So it may bring back the same information that it has increased, but I think it would be interesting to look at that. You know, fly tipping's an epidemic across the country. There's not a one-size-fits-all. We are trying lots of different things. And I just want to share a bit of positive news on some of the things we're doing, because I've been approached by another council in the East Midlands in regards to the Ring Doorbell project and the amount of fixed penalty notices that we've issued from Ring Doorbell footage of fly tippers in Simpson and Osmiston. So there is other ways and means of trying to catch these people that don't want to live by the rules. So, you know, I just wanted to share that positive story as well. Like I say, it's not a one-size-fits-all. We've got lots of things in the pot that we're trialling, and, you know, hopefully we will get to the point where we do reduce it, but it is an epidemic across the country, you know.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Nwaha.
Well, thank you, Chair. I think one other thing we do need to consider is that Derby has become one of those cities that people from not just all over the country, but all over, you know, different parts of the world have come to make home over the past few years. So there's been, as there is in other places, an increase, an uptick, as it were, in the population, and also change, especially being a university city. There's always that in and out of students, and if we go to our wards, especially a ward like mine where there are a lot of students, there's always, again, when you look at some of that period that we're looking at, especially around the September, there's suddenly a lot of waste that needs to be disposed of. Landlords are renovating. So it's, as Councillor Swan has said, it's data. You can almost interpret it to mean what you want, but we also need to get down to it and look at the nitty-gritty, because we can also argue, in a way, that if we didn't have this, and with the amount of turnover in residents that we do have every single, or three times a year, sometimes in many wards, we might have had more. So there's that coulda, shoulda, woulda, that without enough data, without enough granular data, we can't, again, make the assumptions that correlation is proof of causation. And that's something we do need to have at the back of our minds. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nwaha. It's a good point, and we do need to remind ourselves that the booking system was introduced by the previous administration as a result of COVID, and we saw the use of Rainsway HWRC drastically reduced during that time. But the decision to keep the booking system was taken because there was a massive cost saving, because there was less waste being collected. Although waste is an expensive thing for a council, it's not a good thing to be collecting less of it, and that's really important. And the fact that we have been recycling more and more of it, and actually the team at the site are getting better and better at recycling the stuff that comes in and reusing it and repurposing it, plus the use of the shop, that's all really, really positive stuff. So sometimes we do have to weigh up the cost that this means to the council, and we've taken that seriously, and that's why we've included it in the budget consultation. But we also have to weigh up what it means to the city in terms of impact of waste collection, waste recycling, and waste reduction. And when it comes to fly tipping, we never thought that opening the tip on a Sunday or providing free bulky waste options was going to solve fly tipping, but we hoped that it would chip away. It would be some of the tools in the box, and we have other tools that we've all been talking about and working really hard on that we're still developing and we want to trial and implement. So it's really, really important that all of those things are put into the mix. I just wanted to coming back to the shop, just wanted to ask you, Simon, now, we're told in the report that the reason that we can't change from a pop-up shop to a permanent shop is because of the concern of extra queues on Sundays. What's stopping us from only opening the shop Monday to Saturday and then getting the licence for that?
So yeah, we can do that. I mean, we've been trialling pop-up shops just to see how they're going. So they very much are a pop-up structure. I think if we were to look at running the shop more frequently, we'd want to put a permanent structure in. Then need to look at staffing of that. So really, it's just been trialling to see, what items have been coming through the site, what do people want, what has been sold, what has been diverted away from landfill, etc., etc. So we can take the learning from those pop-ups to move forward with something more permanent. Thank you for that.
So, I mean, it feels a little bit like that's looked at as a negative in the report, but actually, there's a really easy solution to that challenge, and that is just to open it Monday to Saturday, and planning should be sorted for that. Are there any more comments or questions from Cabinet members? Okay, so it just remains really for me to thank you for this report. I know that an awful lot of, and the team, I know a lot of work went into it, and it was reviewed several times before it came to Cabinet. I think it's really important that we've shown that we are listening, and we still are. We said that we would consider the review, we will, but we've also included it in the consultation because we want to listen to the residents. And so again, I repeat what Councillor Nwaha has said. I really, really urge people to go to Let's Talk Derby and complete the consultation before Friday, because we need to hear the voices of people who've been on a Sunday and, whether they prefer a booking system on 7 days a week, or do they prefer that flexibility? Have they been several times on a Sunday? Has it been useful for them? So, to the public, please, please, please go to the consultation. Even if that's the only bit that you fill in, we really want to hear from you. And back to your point, Councillor Swan, about how do we get that information? Sometimes we just have to go to the people because, filling in online forms isn't the most exciting thing to do. I suggest that we as a cabinet go to the HWRC on a Sunday and we poll, just draw a poll and just, ask the public, why are you here? Have you had to wait long? Has it been convenient for you to not have to book? Do you come in the week? Would you book, would you have come on a Sunday if you had to book? All those kind of things. And let's just get us a bit more, on-site information. Okay, so next I need to go to no, I don't. No, so I'll open the questions out to opposition councillors. We only have one representation here today, Councillor Cuss. Do you have a question?
Yeah, please. Thank you, Chair. It's clear that there needs to be a multiple solution approach when tackling fly tipping. Would the Cabinet explore the additional option, of reintroducing compacted days for collection again? The Cabinet paper in December 2023 estimated that reinstating this service would cost £90,000. However, if we can compare the costs associated with fly tipping before and after removal of the service, it may be possible that a good proportion of this costing could be offset by reduction of fly tipping incidents and the clearance cost. Furthermore, the report shows that fly tipping cost for a 6-month period period for 2023 and 2024. Is it possible to view full year's incidents and costs since 2019? So then we can have a look at the data and see if the compacted days did have an impact in regards to the cost and number of incidents.
I would hazard a guess, and you can back me up or not on this, Simon, that that would be really, really difficult to show whether the compacted days alone had that impact, because you can compare how much fly tipping has risen before and after we had compacted day collections, but fly tipping has risen anyway, not just here in Derby, but across the UK. So, there's a trend there that has nothing to do with whether you've got that collection or not. So how do you compare it? Am I right, or?
Thanks, Chair. I'd agree with that. Equally as well is that previously compacted days were across the city. And if we think, I haven't got the exact percentage, but if we think that over 70% of the fly tips that occur in Derby are within the inner city wards, that's why we've tried to trial more sort of bespoke action in that area. So we've been working with Keep Britain Tidy to try and do some nudge theory with people, so crime scene taping things off, because the high levels of fly tipping are not across the whole of Derby. It's quite, bespoke in those areas.
And we also, we actually considered this, and we discussed this morning in our Cabinet session, and we came to a few conclusions, didn't we, Cabinet, about the bulky waste collection and what that does with the waste versus the need to actually recycle more. Do you want to go into that a little bit, Councillor Nwaha? I mean, we suggested, we're not saying that this is what we're going to do, but we're toying, and we will talk more about the idea of bringing in external partners to help recycle more, so rather than bulky waste.
Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, we did have that conversation, and well, again, more specifically back to what you've said, about the data and all that. It's you've obviously, heard some of the conversation we've had here about just how to pinpoint data and and draw a line from a single point of activity to a whole outcome. So those were some of the considerations, and which is why we're having this trial period, to see if anything shifts, and then we can pinpoint just what exactly is shifting. So I think before we sort of jump into another option or another decision, we would like to see just how much what we've done so far has helped, but also balancing that with the need to encourage a lot of people to recycle more, which is, you know, a greater goal for not just the city, but, you know, for the country. So that's where we are, but I'm sure we can keep having conversations outside here. Thank you.
Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, just on the, obviously, the data that you requested, I think it's really difficult pre and post-COVID because people's habits totally changed. I think people started fly tipping because they had no other ways or means to get rid of stuff that were at home, and that culture's kind of carried on a little bit to a degree. So I don't think it would give us data that you're perhaps looking for on that. In addition to that, we discussed this as well at the Labour group last night, that last night, God the days, that we're looking into setting up a fly tipping task force where we get all wards involved, so we get an understanding of the needs that need addressing in each ward, because not all wards have this issue. It is the inner city ones. More than welcome for you to be on that. We want as many voices on that from the people that are in them wards that would know more, but that is something we're looking to do. Surprise, Simon!
Yeah.
This is hot off the press.
It is hot off the press. But it just goes to show we're trying lots of different things that need to go in the pot to kind of bring down this issue.
Councillor Swan.
Yeah, just to support Sarah there a little bit, and a surprise for Simon, is we recognise that every councillor, regardless of who you vote for or not, as be the case, will have the same problem in their wards. Some are a bit larger, some are smaller. So I think the suggestion last night was, how do we work together as all those councillors trying to address this issue? So it's not a standalone for this cabinet, that we're all involved in this conversation to achieve some of those positive outcomes for our communities, because we all want the same. We're all on the same page. Just how we get there is going to be different.
That's really true. Thank you very much, Councillor Swan. Just going back to, would we consider bringing back the compactor days? We talked about it because it's something that we did consider. We saw how successful they were in our wards. But actually, what we talked about this morning was when you have a compactor day, all of the rubbish comes out of someone's home. It's all collected and it's put into a bin wagon. Sorry, that's probably not the technical term, but and then it all gets crushed, and then it all gets dealt with in one great big bundle, and so it can't be separated out and recycled or what have you. But actually, maybe the alternative and better way to do it, and to help with the cost of that to the council, is to involve partners who can recycle those things, who can, actually make a profit from it, or, whether it's charities like British Heart Foundation, who collect furniture, or the furniture project that Derby Food for Thought and we are collaborating on, collecting furniture, collecting old bikes that could be reused and fixed up. Metal collection, so you scrap metal collection could come around, and we could tour, do a tour of those inner city wards where there's lots of demand for it, but rather than just putting it into the back of a wagon, it all getting crushed and then dealt with in bulk, it's actually separated out and recycled by partners who want to do that because it benefits them. So that's another one that we're toying with right now. And that's not a surprise, because I have been talking about that for several years. But there we go. So great conversation that this report has brought up. I think yes, there have been negatives, but there are positives too. And it's weighing those up and seeing what didn't work and what can we tweak, what can we change. But it's really important, again, that we balance the budget, we balance the cost of what this is costing right now. Are there ways to reduce that? But importantly, to listen. The final part of this jigsaw is to listen to the public's opinion, and once we've got all of that evidence, then we'll be able to make a decision. So, and with that, going on to the Executive Scrutiny Board recommendation from Monday evening, the Chair of Executive Scrutiny isn't here today to present this, so I'll just read it out. The Exec Scrutiny Board resolved 1, to agree that Council Cabinet should explore the potential to set up a permanent second-hand shop at Rainsway site to be open on the days when visits to the recycling facility are booked. So we already talked about that. and to ensure that shoppers can be accommodated even when they are not coming on a booked slot. Oh, right. So does that mean that people could just go and use it even if they're not visiting the site to recycle and reuse? Yeah? And the second one was to agree that when Council Cabinet consider a way forward for the household waste, they balance the additional 218,000 cost for unbooked Sundays and the cost of dealing with fly tipping against potentially introducing free targeted bulky waste collection vouchers citywide to directly address fly tipping and add to the education about the unacceptability of fly tipping. That's quite a complicated sentence, but I think I understand it. But it sounds like this recommendation is an either or. You can't have both, but I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think we are introducing targeted free bulky waste collection vouchers citywide, so that part is a tick. But when it comes to saying, oh, take the cost of what it is to open on a Sundays and apply it to this, I think there's plenty of other things that we are applying and we are talking about in terms of tackling fly tipping, including potential changes to the budget to increase the waste education. So there's all of these things that we're considering. I appreciate that this was the point of this report was just to note it right now. So we're not necessarily agreeing to any of these exec scrutiny recommendations right now. But the first point about the shop we've already discussed, so we will certainly take that discussion further. And in terms of the targeted bulky waste, that's already happening. And as I say, an either or. Let's look at all of the data, let's look at all of the feedback, and then we'll present the reasons for our final decision, including what else we intend to be doing about tackling fly tipping. Councillor Hazelgrave?
Since this is a public meeting, Chair, I just ought to point out that on section 10.1 of the report, it does refer to, and I'll read it out, the reuse pop-up shop at Rainsway HWRC has proven very popular with customers. Eventually, the service intends to offer a reuse shop every day the booking system is operational, providing greater opportunity for residents to source household items for a small cost. So it's in the plan, and it's a question of making sure we do that in a way that responds best to the demand. I think the second part of point one, to ensure of the exec scrutiny's recommendations, which is to ensure that shoppers can be accommodated even when they are not coming on a booked slot, could mean there'd be a lot of people coming along without a booking and delaying people who have made a booking to get access to the site. So that would need to be carefully thought out in terms of the logistics of it, personally, I think. Because it wouldn't be a good service for people to book, and they've got a time slot, and they find that people are in front of them that haven't booked, and they've got a right to go in because they want to use the shop, and that just wouldn't be fair. Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that we'll just consider all of the logistics of that, the shop before.
Yeah.
Did you want to make any further comments, Simon?
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's something that we just have to keep under review. So if we do some of these pop-up events during the week when we've got the booking system to see what sort of visitors we've got coming, we can then review those numbers and just keep that under review.
Yeah.
What happened when I visited a similar site in Sutton Coldfield, I think it was, and actually, while the site was very close to the recycle centre, it was just alongside it, so you could access that the shop separately, but it was still had all the advantages of taking all of the recyclable waste from the tip. So there's lots and lots of options that we've got to talk about and consider on that. Sorry, I thought we'd finished the conversation. Councillor Swan.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Nadine. Thank you, Chair. Just on the recommendations, I think that, when we're talking about education, about the unacceptability of fly tipping, surely it's got to be broader than that. We've got to be talking about the education around recycling, climate change, fly tipping. It's got to, it's not just about fly tipping, it's all those other things that make our communities a better place to live.
Absolutely, thank you very much. That was a really interesting conversation and debate, so thank you. 2.1, the recommendation is to note the contents of the report. Duly noted. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 9, which is approval of council tax support scheme for 25-26. Councillor Dinser.
This is to approve the council tax support scheme for 25-26. In 2013, the government removed the council tax benefit scheme, and in April 2030 it was replaced by the council tax support scheme. This paper is looking at continuing with the scheme for 25-26 in the same format as it's been used in the previous years since 2013. So the recommendation here is to actually approve the scheme up from 1st of April 2025 as outlined in Appendix 1.
Thank you, Councillor Dinser. Anything to comment on or question from Cabinet? No? Okay. Councillor Cuss? Okay, thank you. Anything to add, Alison? Okay. The Executive Scrutiny Board resolved to note the report, so therefore we'll go straight to the recommendation 2.1 to approve the scheme. Is everyone supportive? Thank you. Item 10 is the council tax base for 2025-26. Am I? No? Okay. Can I go to Alison? It's not Councillor Kozlowski. Alison, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an annual report that comes to Cabinet. It's a prominent feature of the setting the council tax and the budget for 25-26. So we have to make an estimate of the bandy equivalent properties for 25-26, and that enables us to set our budget for next year and also our council tax. The report is necessary to be able to notify our preceptors by the end of the month, and our preceptors being Derbyshire Crime Commissioner and Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Service as well. So we have an obligation to be able to set the council tax base for those as well. You can see in the appendix of the report the calculations associated with the council tax base. We are estimating that the bandy equivalent properties for next financial year is 73,139, which represents an increase of around just shy of 1,300 bandy equivalents compared to last financial year, and that increase is predominantly as a result of an increase in the number of dwellings within the city. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from Cabinet members? Okay, thank you. Councillor Cuss? Okay, thank you very much. Then recommendations 2.1 to 2.2. Do we all agree? Thank you. Then we move on to item 11, which is contract and financial procedure matters. This time, sorry, Councillor Kozlowski.
Thank you, Chair. By way of introduction, the Government is committed to a Warm Homes plan to upgrade 5 million homes over the next 5 years, to cut bills for families and deliver warmer homes to cut fuel poverty. The Warm Homes local grant is a government-funded scheme and delivered by local authorities, and that will take the first steps to deliver on the ambitions of the Warm Homes plan. It will provide grants for energy performance upgrades and low-carbon heating to low-income households living in the lowest quality, privately owned homes in England to achieve energy bill savings and carbon savings. These upgrades will be open to all fuel types. Derby City Council are joining up with Midlands Net Zero Hub regional members to bid for the Warm Homes local grant. A list of the members of the Midlands Net Zero Hub is available in the appendix to the report. The Hub will submit a regional bid on behalf of members and have indicated that the indicative allocation for Derby
would be a total of £3.28 million, 0.75 million in 25-26 and 2.53 million in 26-27. These figures are subject to change pending final confirmation from the Department of Energy Scrutiny and Net Zero. We expect this confirmation in February, so not very long. Although it's been confirmed it is a 3-year scheme, there has not been guidance provided as to the allocation for the 3rd year. Any further allocations will depend on performance in year 1 and 2 and will be subject to appropriate approvals. The scheme will run from April 25 until March 28 if the bid is successful. The purpose of this report, therefore, is to approve the submission of a regional bid with Midlands Net Zero Hub to the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero and the acceptance of funding of around £3.28 million. And to approve the addition of a new Warm Homes Local Grant Capital Scheme of £3.28 million to the 25-26 and 26-27 Housing General Fund Capital Programme, subject to the approval of successful submission to the Warm Homes Local Grant bid and acceptance of the funding. And finally, for speed of delivery and maximisation of the programme, Cabinet is asked to approve that authority is delegated to the Director of Finance and the Strategic Director of Communities and Place in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Housing, Strategic Planning and Regulatory Services to award grants in line with the approved grant terms to individual homeowners and procure a delivery contractor if the bid is successful. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Councillor Kozlowski. I mean, this is really welcome, isn't it? And if we're successful, this will go a long way to supporting our carbon reduction ambitions. And really importantly, helping people to save costs in their homes as well. Do we have any comments or questions? Councillor Swan.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that we are successful in this. And I think in Derby we've seen some really good work in partnership with Derbyshire Homes. I mean, I've personally visited streets and locations where there have been really good home improvements, installations, solar panels, etc. Spoken to people, and they are really grateful that they are in a council-run property where they have that opportunity. But I think, I hope I didn't miss that this will be extended to homes outside of that, which is really welcome. So let's just hope that we are successful.
Thank you, Councillor Swan. Any further comment? Okay. Any questions, Councillor Cuss? Thank you very much. Then we'll go to recommendations 2.1 to 2.3. Do we all agree? Superb. Thank you very much. And that concludes the first Cabinet meeting of the year. Thank you for your time. Bye.